Morena, welcome to this webinar today. We're joined by MFE to talk about the panel for the Contaminated Sites and Vulnerable Landfills Fund. I'm just going to start with the karakia this morning. Tu taua mai I runga, tu taua mai I raro, tu taua mai I roto, tu taua mai I waho. Kia tau o te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa. Humie, huie, taikie. So welcome everyone. I'm hoping that you've come along to this right webinar this morning on the Contaminated Sites and Vulnerable Landfills Fund panel process with MFE. Just a few housekeeping things before I start the introductions. This is a webinar. We will be recording it and it will be available for people to view later. If you have any questions, do feel free to pop them into the Q&A. Ella and the team at MFE will also be popping some links into the chat for you to be able to look at later, as well as the recording to the previous webinar about the application process for the Contaminated Sites and Vulnerable Landfill Funds in case you missed that. And any other questions, though, feel free to pop them into the Q&A. We will have time at the end to go through those. So, please welcome today Elinor Thomas from the Ministry for the Environment. Elinor is a Senior Business Analyst, Reporting and Systems at the Ministry for the Environment. She has worked in MFE's waste investments for 5 years and has built a deep knowledge of waste-related issues. Her recent role has been in developing and improving tools and processes to support MFE's successful funding of environmental projects. So Elinor will be our main speaker today. We're also joined by Carmel Mangan, Investment Manager, Waste Investments. Carmel has worked in the Contaminated Land team at the Ministry for 5 years, developing contaminated land policy and administering the Contaminated Sites Remediation Fund, or the CSRF. And Carmel has recently joined the Waste Investment team to set up the new CSVLF. Carmel has a background in environmental chemistry and consulting and in local government, consenting the NESCS, and is based in Poneke, Wellington. So Carmel will be assisting with any Q&A when we get to that time. All right, I'm going to pass over to Elinor this morning. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thanks, Fiona. Can you see my slides? Great. Kia ora koutou. My name's Elinor Thomas, as Fiona has introduced me. And I'm here from the Ministry for the Environment to talk to you today about the assessment panel and its processes for the Contaminated Sites and Vulnerable Landfills Fund. As mentioned, my colleague Carmel is here on hand to help with questions. So I'd like to start off by thanking Wastmans for organising and hosting this session. The information we have to cover board, so we won't be taking the full hour. Let's get started. As you may be aware, the Ministry has been funding remediation of high-risk contaminated sites through the Contaminated Sites Remediation Fund. As of 1st of October, the Contaminated Sites and Vulnerable Landfills Fund took over that function, and there have been some changes around eligibility and the level of funding. There are also some changes to how we will recruit the assessment panel and its membership. These changes bring the CSVLF panel in line with other waste investments processes. They also provide an opportunity to seek new panel members. We're here to talk you through this new panel process today and also tell you who we're looking for and, if you're interested, what to do next. In this session, we'll cover a quick high-level introduction to the fund, highlighting what is new and the timeframe for the application process. We'll also cover the role of the panel and specifically in the application assessment. We'll talk about who we're looking for, estimations of the time commitment and eligibility. There'll be a little bit more information on what's involved in being a panel member and then how to register your interest. We'll take about 15 minutes to get through all of this, and after that we'll have time for questions and answers. There'll also be an opportunity to go back to this recording once it's uploaded on our website, and also to contact us through the CSVLF email if you have further questions. So firstly, a little bit about the fund. If you attended our previous webinar, this will be familiar to you. And recordings of both of these webinars, as Fiona has mentioned, the previous one's already available on our website. This one will be too, and we'll also be popping the previous one in the chat today. I think Wastemans has also shared the previous webinar and probably this one. So the CSVLF has about 30 million to invest by 2026. The purpose of this is to reduce the risk of human health and the environment posed by legacy contaminated sites and vulnerable landfills. We can fund phase 2, 3, and 4 projects, but phase 1 projects need to be self-funded. Applications can be made by regional, unitary, and now also territorial councils. Assessments and recommendations for funding are made by the independent panel that you're hearing about today. The ministry will consider recommendations that are for projects under $1 million, but for projects over $1 million, the decision will be made by the Minister for the Environment. These changes in process bring us in line to follow the waste investments best practice. On this slide here is a high-level view of the fund process and the time frame from application through to funded projects. The application stage is expected to be around 1 to 3 months, and the assessment process, but we have tightened this time frame. This part is the part of the process where the panel is involved. So applicants will go to our website and check their eligibility and submit their application once they're ready. We'll then do an internal check to make sure the application is eligible and all the required information has been included before we pass it on to our panel members. Panel members who are sitting here in the process will review and assess the projects, scoring them. They'll do that individually and then get together in a panel meeting to form recommendations on each of these applications. These recommendations will be passed on to MFE for the decision-making process. So the role of the panel primarily is to review and assess these applications and make recommendations. The panel meetings will be online. They're expected to be every second month, starting in February 2025. You about your availability if you're wanting to be a panel member, and we realise that just giving a month is a little bit vague. But on the form, there is a place to make comments. So we'd like you to detail your any relevant availability in that space. Panel members will also be published on the ministry's website. The people we're looking for will constitute a pool of about 14 people, up to 14 people. And this structure allows us to manage conflicts of interest, which we feel are potentially likely to arise due to the fact that some of our panel members may also be applicants to the fund. This pool structure means that we don't expect all panel members to attend all meetings, and we have settled on a quorum of 5 as a requirement for each meeting. These 5 people will be a mixture of technical expertise and experience in contaminated land remediation, coastal and riverine processes, also representatives of regional or unitary authorities and territorial councils. There'll also be ministry subject matter representation. quite difficult to estimate the number of hours that panel members will need to commit, as this is going to be dependent on both the number of applications that we receive and how complex they are. For planning purposes, we've estimated that for each of the 6 planned panel meetings, there'll be around 4 applications. The estimated time to assess each application is going to be around 3.5 hours per person. It might be up to 5 hours for more complex applications or less for more straightforward ones. In addition to this, each panel meeting is expected to be 2 hours. And remember, the proposed structure of the panel means that we don't expect all panel members to attend all meetings. The resources supplied to panel members are a terms of reference, panel member guidance document, and a scoring tool, as well as the application itself. To be a panel member, you need to be available for at least 5 of the 6 meetings per year. You need to be able to work in New Zealand. For council representatives, you also need to be currently employed by a regional council, unitary authority, or territorial authority. Confirmation from your employer that you are able to spend time and they are happy to cover the costs of your time to do this work is also needed. And for specialists, you need to hold an EINZ certification as a contaminated land specialist. Appointments will be made by the ministry at its discretion. We're going to seek to make appointments for a mixture of terms, 1, 2, and 3 years. And this is to manage the turnover of panel members and retain consistency in the assessment process. Conflicts of interest, as I've said, will be actively managed, including by using the pool structure. Panel members will be required to sign a confidentiality agreement and also will be able to resign under their terms of their appointment. Well, that is all the information that we have put together to go over today. So thank you for your time, and we welcome your, oh, sorry, missed a slide. It's going so well. So yeah, the most important part, how do you register your interest in being a panel member? Well, first off, please check your eligibility. The information that's been given in this webinar and on our website is your main guide. You can also email us if you have any additional questions. The terms of reference and online form are not on our website yet, so you'll need to check back for those. If you'd like to be emailed when they are available, then please email us with panel in the subject heading and we'll let you know once they're available. You'll need to read the terms of reference and then fill out our form. The closing date for these forms is the 10th of November and we're expecting appointments in early December. You can withdraw your interest in becoming a panel member at any stage up to appointment by emailing us. We have included our email address on this slide in the bottom right hand. So now, thank you for your time today. That is all the information we have, actually, and we welcome your pārtai.
Thank you, Elinor. We have some questions, and the first question, we'll actually throw to Carmel, just because she hasn't spoken yet. And Carmel, question from Michael, is the fund open to other organizations?
Thank you, Ella, and thank you, Michael. Is there a chance that potentially you could give us an idea of what you mean by other organisations. It is...
Sorry, the remainder of the question was not councils, regional councils.
Okay, okay.
So it seems to me a good point to refer to the recording of the application, the applicant's webinar.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I can appreciate that sometimes we it does tend to sound like we're talking about councils as applicants, but in fact it's landowners. So it is landowners that are applying, and that is the key here. And it just so happens in some respect that a large majority of contaminated sites and, of course, vulnerable landfills are owned by councils. So sometimes that's why the conversation can end up sounding like it's a fund for councils. But indeed, it is landowners. And yes, please do go back to that other recording. It was some of my best work, I suppose. So, I'm sure you'll glean some pearls of wisdom from that.
So thank you. So the previous webinar is the webinar for applicants to the fund, which is posted on the Wastemints website and on our website, and since there have been changes to the fund, I strongly recommend anyone who wants to be on the panel to actually go have a look at all the changes to the fund and what applicants are dealing with. We would have also hoped to have had the expression of interest form ready for you today, so you could sign up. We've run into some hiccups within the ministry, so it's going to be 1 week, hopefully, maybe 2 weeks before that is up on our website, but then you can fill out the form for that. So there's more questions. From Dave. Will you be restricting panel members to consultancies already on MFE's science panel? Did you want to take that, Elinor, or are we going back to Carmel?
Yeah, we are not restricting to the science panel.
Sorry?
We're not restricting to the science panel.
Okay. Will you be restricting, I guess I could have combined these two, but will you be restricting panel members to all of government construction consultancy panel members?
No, that's not our intention.
Okay. Then, actually, interesting question. Are we having any panelist involvement in monitoring or otherwise advising on actual projects? That sounds...
I can pick that one up if you like. So the role of the panel is advisory in terms of assessing those applications and determining whether they are appropriate for the funding requested. There's no ongoing roles and responsibilities for panel members beyond that panel meeting, apart from reviewing the minutes and confirming that they are correct. So there is definitely nothing beyond the panel meeting.
Okay. We have a question from Chris. I presume CPENG is a suitable alternative to EIANZ certification. That sounds like a Carmel question to me.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Chris. So we are looking for certified SQEPs, and so we're making that distinction that with these types of projects, they are the high risk, they are the complex projects, and equally so they have that level of capabilities, competencies in the persons who are actually reviewing them. So we're definitely looking for certified SQEPs under those certification schemes.
Thank you. And then this one is for you, Elinor. Can we say something more about the selection process we're going to run?
Only at high level at the moment. We have our online form, which will ask you a bit about your background and experience, and then that will be used by in the selection process by MFE.
Thank you. I think I have one question I can't really decipher. But it's coming from, I think we've answered this. The question is this a competitive bid? If so, on what criteria? And I think that's what we just answered, correct? Yeah. And then that's a good question. Are we expecting the panelists to do this on their own time at their own cost?
The scripts are a paid position, but for the council positions is that it would be covered as your council work, which is why we need confirmation from your employer that that's acceptable.
Okay, thank you. But then on the other hand, can it be completed on someone's own time and not require approval if you work for one of those employers, councils?
That is a very good question and not one that we have considered. I think I'd have to take some time and come back on that one.
Yes. Okay, I think that's it for the questions here. Thank you so much. Okay, no, one more coming in. Good one. How will conflicts of interest be managed? For example, if a panel member belongs to an applicant organization, which in the past wasn't an issue because the panel was put together for every round.
This is why we're going for the pool member, the pool structure. So we are looking for more panel need for a decision so that it's easy to have someone not involved in a particular assessment session or panel meeting so that they're not involved in the assessment of that application at all. And we have plenty of other choices.
If the tour and the application forms aren't up for another week or two, will the November 10th date be moved?
I pricked my ears up when you said 2 weeks, because that does take us pretty much up to the closure date. I think it will be, we're optimistic for next week. If it does become an issue, we would extend that date and update our website to reflect that. But we are hoping it will be not as much as 2 weeks by any stretch.
Good to hear. Are panel members expected to be generalists, or are they going to be recruiting for specific skill sets?
Oh, Carmel, you're muted.
Hello? Am I good? Yeah, good to go. Okay, yeah. No, so we are looking for contaminated soils in the as the minimum, if you like. But then, of course, those specialist options will be considered if you've got them relevant to the type of projects that we're expecting to come through. So we wouldn't be necessarily we'd be looking beyond just the general certification.
And there'll be room on the form to
correct. Yes,
to describe those. Yes, we ask for those, and obviously we're looking for a rounded panel with suitable applications. So and CENVPSC is essentially the qualification needed. That's correct, right?
So that's what we're considering is that minimum, if you like. But then, as you well know, that in the sense that when you go into those specialties, there's a range of them, and so we'd be looking for the ones that fit closest to the types of projects that we're expecting to come through the fund.
Good. And then here, one of my favorite questions: will the priority list on the MFE's website be updated? That's for you, Carmel.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I've got back half an hour this morning, so I'll get on to that. Yes,
Okay.
yes. It is definitely overdue for an update.
Thank you. And then we want to clarify a previous point. Are SQEP panel members acting as individuals or employees of consultancies if they are so employed?
I gather that it's a little bit more straightforward from our point of view if we are working with individuals, but we think it is possible for us to look at organizations, but oh no, sorry. We are looking for individuals, yeah.
Okay. I think that brings us nicely to wrap up so that we can get Carmel on the priority list and everyone back. Thank you so much, and I'll hand back to Fiona.
Kia ora. I can see a couple more questions coming in, but we will hold those over and I'll make sure they get passed over to Ministry for the Environment to answer after this webinar. So just thank you all for attending, and I'm just going to close off with the karakia today. Ke whakaerea te tapu, ke waitea a te area. Kia tūriki whakataha ai, kia tūriki whakataka ai. Kumie, kuie, taikie. Kia ora, and thanks for coming along today. The recording will be available hopefully later on today. Thank you.